Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the live game review. Everton 2, Boreham 0 in the FA Cup 5th round on Thursday night. Everton progressing into the quarterfinals where we will face Crystal Palace away from home. An extremely difficult fixture. Just watch Crystal Palace put in a really solid performance to win in the Premier League today, and they're a team that are in really good form, a team that have got a lot of quality in there, and a team that will definitely give Everton an extremely difficult game in the quarterfinals. Of course, if we do manage to get through that round and beat Crystal Palace, then we will book ourselves a place at Wembley Stadium for the semi-final against no doubt one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the league that are still in the competition, a couple of which have got pretty easy draws in the quarterfinal, I think it has to be said. But we had to get through this round. We had to beat Boreham Wood. We had to, ultimately overcome the potential giant killing and overcome the sort of, I feel like everybody's outsider to want to win the competition or to want to go as far as possible in the competition in Boreham Wood because of their situation and their league status and how far down in the leagues that they are and how well they did in their previous round against Bournemouth to pick up a 1-0 victory away from home there. And it was always going to be pressure on Everton, really. And it wasn't a comfortable performance in the sense of that we went out and we won 4-5-6-0. I do think it was a comfortable performance in the sense that Boreham Wood had absolutely nothing in the game and it was never really in doubt that Everton were going to win the game. As I said, the possession stats will tell you that, the shot stats will tell you that. I don't think they had a single shot on target. I think they had 1 shot in the game, so it wasn't uncomfortable in the sense that we were put under any real pressure and there was any moment in the game where you were thinking, oh my god, we're not going to, this is going to end badly for us. You always almost sort of knew in a non-arrogant way, and I don't want this to sound arrogant, and full respect to Boreham Wood and their players for turning up and giving absolutely everything and battling and showing that desire and showing that commitment and that fight, as to what they did throughout the course of this game. But without disrespecting them, we always knew, I think, from the opening 10 minutes that this was going to be an Everton win. However, I wouldn't say it was a particularly great performance. You can have comfortable performances and then you can have really good performances, and I wouldn't say that this was a really good performance whatsoever. I actually think Everton were pretty poor on Thursday night. I think we dropped our level almost to match Boreham Wood's level, and there's absolutely no doubt that if we perform like that against Crystal Palace in the next round, we won't be as fortunate as to progress. And if we perform like that on Monday night against Spurs, then it could be another difficult afternoon or difficult evening for us all to watch an away fixture. We will be doing the live game preview to the game against Tottenham Hotspur. That will be tomorrow. Yes, weekend live streams. What are these? We were meant to be doing them yesterday, but however, I had a party to go to in the night, and by the time I'd done a few bits in the morning, I actually didn't have time to sit down and do a live stream. So we're doing the review today to Boreham Wood, and the preview to Spurs will be live tomorrow afternoon, round about 2-3 o'clock-ish. We'll sit down and we'll talk about that. We'll give our predicted starting 11s. We'll do all of that sort of stuff. So don't forget to join us for that one. But as I said, we weren't particularly great on Thursday night. I think creative-wise, movement up front was lacking. I don't think, certainly in that first half, I don't think Solomon Rondon was particularly good whatsoever. Now, okay, he grew into the game and he ended up getting the 2 goals, which ultimately saw us through the tie-in into the next round, and a massive respect to Solomon Rondon for that, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that as well, because he was getting a lot of stick in that first half, but his movement in the first half just wasn't good enough. Anthony Gordon, the things that he was trying weren't quite coming off. Obviously, we had Abdoulaye Doucouré in there, we had Alan in there, and Frank Lampard started with a rather sort of strange, almost 5 at the back formation. I think he did so to utilise the pace and the attacking presence of the wing backs, which obviously were Nathan Patterson making his debut, and Vitaly Mykolenko, who captained the side on the left hand side. Just before we go into the game, again, I wasn't at the Manchester City game. We sat here and we done the review last week, and we spoke about how sort of how nice that was to see, the Ukraine tribute at the start of the City game, and obviously the hug between Mykolenko and Zinchenko and all of that sort of stuff. But I couldn't say it from first hand. I'd only watched the clips on the internet, and I'd only heard from other people that were in the grounds as to what that was like. And, obviously Thursday night was the first time for me being at Goodison Park since this has all sort of, gone off, and it was absolutely heartwarming and really, really touching to see the tribute, to see the players coming out with the Ukrainian flags on them, the Boreham Wood players coming out, and Kane Smith, who obviously is a massive Evertonian playing for Boreham Wood. He come out with a Boreham Wood shirt with Mikalenko on the back. The Beatles were playing in in the background, and Everton had put together a montage of images that was extremely sad. And obviously Mikalenko led the team out, and the support for him from not only the crowd, but I think everybody in the stadium was fantastic as well. So that was a really heartwarming, touching start to the game. And Mikalenko himself had an opportunity within the opening couple of minutes, didn't he? I think it was 5-6 minutes in, something like that. Ball gets put across to Abdoulaye Doucouré, and I actually think Abdoulaye Doucouré should have probably shot, to be honest with you. I think he lays it off for Mikalenko because A, he probably thinks he's in a good position to score. B, I think he's probably thinking, imagine what this would do for Vitali if he manages to get a debut goal here in this game, captaining the team, leading the team out. But didn't quite go that way. I actually thought Boreham Wood's keeper had a decent game, to be perfectly honest with you. Is it Ashley Hammond is his name? I actually thought he was their best player. They don't get me wrong, as I said, they fought, and they showed battle. Ashby Hammond, they showed a lot of battle, and they showed a lot of desire and commitment and fight. But in terms of quality, to be fair, there wasn't an awful lot there from a Boreham Wood standpoint. However, Ashby Hammond made a couple of really, really crucial saves. He made one from, as I said, Mikalenko at the start. He made one from Richarlison a little bit later on in the game as well, which were, against, stopped it from being, from going to 2-0 or 1-0 to 4-5, which may have been a sort of a scoreline which would have flattened Everton a little bit. So it flattered Everton a little bit. So yeah, as I said, Mikalenko has a shot early on. It gets saved by the goalkeeper, and we were pushing. We had the majority of the possession. We had control of the ball. We had control of the game, and that was pretty much how the game played out, didn't it? For 90 minutes, there was never a point where I don't think any of us were sort of sat there going, "Oh, we're under real pressure here." Boreham Wood are breaking forward, or they're coming forward, or they're putting us under massive pressure. This is going to be a difficult one. It wasn't a case of that. And I've seen some people say, "Oh, how can people be annoyed? How can people be disappointed?" We struggled to break down a team that put 11 men behind the ball. It's nothing to do with our performance. It was their negative tactics. But the reality is, we're talking about a team here who are significantly lower down the leagues than what Everton are. Everton are a Premier League side. Now, yes, we're not a very good Premier League side, fighting relegation at the moment and not in a particularly good position. And I was absolutely over the moon to see Burnley getting absolutely destroyed before by Chelsea, because that's exactly the type of result that we needed. But Newcastle winning again, I think they're 6 points clear off us. And yes, we've got games in hand on all of these teams, and I understand that, and I understand there's still a long way to go and a lot of football to be played, but we're not in the greatest position. But Boreham Wood are a side that are in the National League, which is the 5th tier of English football, so they're 4 tiers below Everton. And I was seeing people on Thursday night saying, "Oh, it's nothing to do with Everton, they've just put 11 men behind the ball and are playing negative tactics." The reality is, that was what they were always going to do. They weren't going to come to Goodison Park and try and go toe-to-toe with us, were they? They weren't going to come to Goodison Park and try and match us man for quality. They were always going to pull and try and defend and hope that they get a lucky break at some point in the game in which they can capitalise on. But the reality is Everton are a Premier League side filled with international players. And I'm not just saying this to be negative, or I'm not just saying this, and some people are saying, "Oh, Cam, do me a favour, we won the game, be positive, get on with it." And I am going to be genuinely positive in this video, because we've won the game. We're through to the next round. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't particularly entertaining, but it was comfortable. It was an easy night's work, I think I'd say. And, as I said, we now see ourselves into the next round, and we've got an absolutely massive Premier League game against Tottenham on Monday night. But that Everton team should have been able to deal with 11, 5th division players sitting behind the ball and defending. We still should have been able to create chances after chance after chance after chance. Now, I know in the second half, if you look at the stats of this game, you're probably looking at me thinking, "What are you talking about? We had 20 odd shots and 11 on goal," or whatever it was. But the majority of those come in the second half, when we'd scored the first goal. Boreham Wood were getting a little bit tired. I think the players were getting a little bit fatigued, and all of a sudden the quality and the experience of the Everton team just got too much for them. But in that first half, we weren't creating anywhere near enough. enough. We weren't moving the ball quick enough. We weren't causing them enough problems. And yes, they stuck 11 men behind the ball, and that's absolutely fine because they're a 5th division, side. They're gonna stick 11 men behind the ball when they're playing away from home against the Premier League team. If that was against Manchester City, and I'm not comparing Everton to Manchester City, by the way, but Manchester City wouldn't be sitting there, or Manchester City fans wouldn't be sitting there saying, well, they've stuck 11 men behind the ball, they're not playing football, so what are we meant to do? They've just gone and scored 6 against them in the opening 15 minutes and gone, you can put as many men behind the ball as you want, we'll play through you. And I feel like one of my big problems with that first half was we just struggled to break them down. We just struggled to get through them. We just struggled to cause a 5th division English team any real problems, and that is a little bit of a worry. That is a little bit of a worry because how are we going to cope if Premier League teams come to Goodison and stick 11 men behind the ball? If Premier League teams come to Goodison and all of a sudden say, do you know what, we'll take a point here. When we know the position that we're in the Premier League, we need as many wins at Goodison Park as we possibly can. As I've just said, Newcastle haven't dropped the point or haven't lost the game for however many weeks now. They're out of it. Okay. Burnley have lost, and I get that, and Brentford have lost today, but we're still very much in this situation. And as I said, again, it's not to be negative, it's not to sit in and have a go for having a go's sake, but I was really, really frustrated with that first half because although it was comfortable, although we did have 80% possession, whatever it is, although we did have more shots than they did and more passes than they did, we, at the end of the day, you can look at every single stat in that first half and it would have told you that Everton were a much better team. But put all of them to the side for one moment. We had 4 or 5 really good top Premier League players, in our strike force. Okay, maybe you wouldn't class Rondon as one, but Anthony Gordon has been on brilliant form so far this season. You got Takore in there, obviously you had Alan in there. We still really, really, really struggled to break down, effectively a glorified Sunday League team. Yeah, and I wasn't going to call them that, but I will because I've seen a couple of their fans having a go on TalkSport and stuff today saying, oh, Evertonians, shit support, this, that and the other. As I said in the instant match reaction, they were literally fighting over the fact that there was no caviar in the stadium, there was only sausage rolls. So, it's a bit ironic, but that's effectively what Boreham would are. Without being too disrespectful, it's glorified Sunday League football, isn't it? And we are a Premier League team, and we, no matter how many players they put behind the ball, he could have put the entirety of Goodison Park behind the ball. We should have been able to deal with that, and we should have been able to create chances, and we should have been able to break down that defence. And okay, we did in the second half, and okay, that become a lot easier in the second half, and all of a sudden, when they got tired legs and when they were a little bit fatigued, we found it a lot easier. But the first half for me was really, really, really poor. As I said, we had a couple of opportunities. Vitaly Mikalenko has one where he, as I said, he gets a shot off and the goalkeeper makes a good save. Keeper made a really, really good save from, I think it was Anthony Gordon. A little bit later on after that, there was a couple where Rondon just made us run a little bit too early and was offside. And then towards the end of the first half, I feel like we started to fall into that just lump the ball up and hope that somebody will get on the end of it sort of tactic. And I'm almost at that point now where thinking that isn't the fault, or that isn't the instruction of Frank Lampard, because I don't think Frank Lampard would instruct the players to, if they're struggling to create chances on the floor, to just lump the ball up. But we saw it. I saw it personally. I don't know whether anybody else got onto it, but there was 2 or 3 occasions just before the half-time whistle where the ball got lumped up. And it was almost just sort of like, we're out of ideas, so let's just hit it up towards Rondon and hope that he can take it down. And the reality is, Rondon isn't very good. I know he scored 2 goals, and fair play to him, and the 2 goals that he scored were good strikers' goals. He did about 5 minutes before. But again, the lumping the ball up to a centre forward and hoping he can do something, it screams Benitez for a start, because that's all we used to do under Benitez. But it also screams, we're void of ideas here. We've got no ideas. We've got no, we've got no plan of what to do. So we're just going to hit it up and hope that something happens. And I get that we're not exactly, Semi says, to be fair, that defence hadn't conceded 1 goal in the cup to that point, and we aren't exactly an offensive powerhouse, so it's reasonable. I get that, I understand that, and I get that Boreham would defensively have been particularly good in this cup run, and I understand that we aren't a fantastic attacking or defending outlet, to be fair, and especially not when we've got like the likes of Damari Gray and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison didn't start the game, etc., etc. out. But I still think the players on the pitch would have been good enough to do more. You know, we're not talking about a championship team or even a League One team. If it was a League One team, I'd say, okay, well, you know, it is what it is. You move on. We were talking about a fifth division English football team that we should have been able to do more in that first half. And as I said, I don't want this to be negative. Eugene, I know it's freezing. It's because I still need to Ethernet me Mac up. So we're still running on Wi-Fi, which isn't particularly strong. The reason being is because when Storm, Gary or whatever it was, Eunice, Eugene, whatever it was, a couple of weeks ago, it's basically knocked the entirety of my TP link just out the window. Effectively, the wire that ran from the outside of the house, from downstairs to upstairs, has just been destroyed. So unfortunately, the Ethernet cables and connections aren't quite working at the moment, so we're running on Wi-Fi, which is why it's freezing. But that will be sorted over the next coming days or so. But yeah, you know, as I said, I don't want this to be negative. I don't want to be sitting here and just having a go for having a go's sake. But you know, it's a review, so I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna give ultimately my honest opinion. And my honest opinion of that first half was it just wasn't good enough. My honest opinion of that first half was, I remember sitting there at half time thinking, we're just not a very good footballing team, are we? We're just not particularly great at this sport. Thankfully, it got a lot better in the second half. Obviously, as I said, Nathan Patterson made his debut. I thought defensively he done well. I actually thought he looked good, and I thought it was rather unlucky of him to have been taken off at half-time, to be perfectly honest with you. I understand the reasons as to why the manager did do it, so that he could change the system and he could change the formation a little bit, but there was a couple of players on there that I think deserved to be taken off prior to Nathan Patterson. I think Andros Townsend was absolutely shocking for the entirety of the game, but specifically in that first half, and I thought Rondon, although he happened to score the 2 goals which have won us the game, I thought he was absolutely dreadful in that first half. I thought Patterson done well. I thought he held himself well. Any bits of defensive work he had to do, I thought he dealt with. I thought his passing was good. Yeah, yes, his crossing into the box. Yes, his final ball into the box. His final product was, you know, a little bit poor and could do with work. But again, it's his first, it's his first sort of game in an Everton shirt. It's his debut. That's going to happen, isn't it? You know, you're going to have moments where, where your passing just isn't particularly great, and your crossing maybe isn't particularly great. But I thought he handled himself, and yes, listen, you know, it's a one game, and it's a game against an opposition that he should have been able to handle himself in. So I'm not going to get too over the top, but I don't particularly think he was bad, and I don't think he was taken off because he was bad. I think it was unfortunate. I think he was just the unfortunate player to have been taken off during a system change. I actually think the same side as Nathan Patterson, John Joe Kenny. I think John Joe was man of the match, to be honest with you. And I know I'll give it to Rondon in the play ratings because he scored the 2 goals. But if we're talking about the 90 minutes as a whole, I actually thought John Joe Kenny was the best player on the pitch in an Everton shirt. But Nathan Patterson done well. I thought Mikalenko done well on the left hand side. Again, you know, I'd have liked to have seen more offensively. I'd have liked to have seen more balls into the box. I'd have liked to have seen more attacking moves from the fullbacks, and especially in a game like that and against a team like that, you would have expected to see more from them. And I think that's why Frank Lampard went with that formation initially, and I think that's ultimately why he changed it at half-time, because we weren't seeing that from them. The defence were doing well. The midfield were in control, as you would expect. I wasn't particularly impressed with Abdoulaye Doucouré because of the standard I hold Abdoulaye Doucouré in. He didn't have a bad game as per se. He wasn't awful. He wasn't making mistakes. He wasn't losing the ball. I just would have expected more from him. But we have to keep reminding ourselves that Abdoulaye Doucouré is only just coming back from an injury. Abdoulaye Doucouré is only just returning from being out for a number of weeks, and obviously, he's going to take time to settle in, and he's going to need that match fitness, and he's going to need that match sharpness. So, as I said, I actually think, you know, we was a relatively comfortable first half, but as I said, the lack of creativeness and the inability to really break Boreham down was starting to frustrate me. And then we come out in the second half. As I said, the manager makes a tactical change. He brings off Nathan Patterson. He brings on Richarlison. And ideally, we shouldn't have needed Richarlison on Thursday night. Now, look, Richie has come out in interviews and said before that he'll play every single game. And I'm sure Richarlison will be well up for Monday night, and he'll be well up for ready to play 90 minutes at the top of his level. And as I said, it wasn't too much of an it wasn't too much of a strenuous game of football for him, or half of football for him. Semi says Tagore tacked down 100 loose balls in that match, Cam. He did. He was good. I'm not saying he wasn't good. And again, maybe I'm falling into this overthinking, overreacting the situation. Again, as I said, Abdoulaye Doucouré done exactly what he needed to do. He sacked balls down. He moved it well. His passing was okay. I just would have liked to have seen him more in attacking areas, maybe bursting forward, maybe adding that little bit of creativity. But maybe that's just because that's what I want to see more of from Abdoulaye. Again, I don't think he had a bad game, and I think Alan was pretty solid as well. But that's what you would expect. These are two top quality Premier League experienced centre midfielders playing against centre midfielders who are nowhere near that level, so it should have been comfortable. But as I said, Richie comes on, not ideal, but he comes on. And, you know, as always with Richarlison, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get 110%. You're going to get somebody that's going to come on and give everything. He's going to treat Boreham Wood as if they were Barcelona, just like he treats Barcelona like anybody else, or Liverpool like anybody else. He gives 110% every single time he's on the pitch, and that's one of his massive traits. And all of a sudden, we started to look a lot better. The system change, the formation change, the tactical change, I think helped in our favour. I think it really, really worked in our favour, if I'm being honest with you. We started to get more. You started to get more out of Rondon. Anthony Gordon was all of a sudden starting to find himself in better areas, starting to move around a little bit more, and that was when we started to really, create chances and put the pressure on Boreham Wood's goal. And as I said, I think the goalkeeper made a couple of really, really big saves in that second half, and saves that ultimately kept them in the game at that point. And as I said, whilst they weren't creating anything themselves, whilst they weren't threatening us in an attacking sense, they were certainly keeping themselves in the game. And obviously we brought on Seamus Coleman a little bit later on in that half for Vitaly Michalenko, went off with a dead leg, and we just sort of shored it up. And ultimately we brought on the players that you wouldn't really have wanted to bring on, to be honest with you. In an ideal situation, Seamus Coleman wouldn't have had to come on Thursday. Richarlison wouldn't have had to have come on Thursday. Frank Lampard said it himself after the game. We spoke about bringing on young Reece Welsh and Isaac Price for their debuts, and Lewis Dobbin, and he said, listen, in an ideal situation, I'd have liked to have given these lads 20 minutes, half an hour, but because of the situation of the game, because of the fact that ultimately we weren't winning the game, and it was still very much a competition, he couldn't do that, and that's why these players only got a matter of minutes towards the end of the game. But we were starting to threaten, we were starting to put a lot of pressure on the goal, we were starting to create more chances, and all of a sudden a goal seemed sort of a matter of sort of a matter of when and not if at this point, and it comes, but just before it comes, we had a really, really good chance. A really good ball gets crossed in the box. Rondon gets up, he's completely on his own, he's unmarked, it's a free header, he's in the middle of the goal, and he heads it over the bar. And I remember looking to me dad, who was sat on my right hand side, and he had the exact same reaction when Rondon headed that ball over the bar as to what he did when Rondon scored the opening goal. And that was just a shake of the head, but a laugh while he shakes the head. Now, I didn't even ask him what that meant, but I can only assume that meant, how have you missed that opportunity? And with the goal, I can only assume it meant, how did he miss the first one? And he scored that. Because it really, really was a sitting. And do you know what? I'll give credit to Rondon where it's due. He doesn't give up, does he? He gets a lot of stick, gets a lot of criticism. He's got a lot of people on his back. He's got a lot of people that, didn't want him at the football club in the first place. Probably still don't want him at the football club now. He was the sort of the manager pick of Rafael Benitez, and we all know how that that tenure ended, and how the Evertonians' feelings towards Rafael Benitez. So Solomon Rondon is, again, he's not had a particularly great relationship with Evertonians since he's come to the football club, but I'll give him his due. He never stops working, he never stops battling, and he never gives up. He never drops his head, he never gets a cob on, he never spits his dummy. It's never like, I can't be arsed, I'll just walk around. Then, sometimes it may look like he's walking around, but I'm pretty confident in saying that he always gives 110% when he's on that pitch, even if 110% sometimes isn't good enough, or even if 110% sometimes isn't what doesn't match what everybody else is doing. He's always given absolutely everything, and he had that chance and he blasted it over the bar, and it was a ridiculous miss. But he kept going, he picked his head up, and he believed in himself, and he said, you know what, I'll get another. And then in a couple of You know, a couple of minutes later, ball gets crossed in, he gets in front of his defender, he gets a touch on it, and it's 1-0. And it was a really, really good finish, to be fair. It was a really, really good finish for Rondon. As I said, it was a much harder opportunity than actually the one that he missed, because he has to get in front of the defender, he has to get a good connection on it, and he has to sort of, he has to guide it into the back of the net. And all of a sudden, we're 1-0 up, and any sort of pressure or any sort of weight on our shoulder that we were feeling prior to the goal was lifted, wasn't it? I think we all at that point, I think everybody within Goodison Park sort of just went, right, okay, that's it now, because Boreham Wood weren't doing anything going forward. They weren't threatening, they weren't creating any opportunities, they weren't causing our defence any problems whatsoever. So I think the entirety of Goodison Park sort of just went, thank anyone that we've got that goal, because the last thing we would have needed was for them to have hung on for extra time and then hung on for penalties, and in a penalty shootout, you never know what the outcome could be. It's effectively potluck, isn't it? Could go to anyone, and especially considering that Asmir Begovic isn't particularly great at saving penalties either. So it was a massive, I think, feeling of relief from within Goodison Park when Solomon Rondon put that first goal in the back of the net. And then again, we just picked ourselves up and we went again. Boreham Wood were then forced to come out a little bit, forced to break their shell a little bit and try and, at least try and move the ball forward and get back into the game. And in doing that, it created a lot of space for Everton, and it created a lot of opportunities for Everton to get further, ahead in the game. And we did that. A couple of minutes later, ball comes in. I think it was Rondon at the initial chance. Goalkeeper makes a save. It bounces off Richarlison's head. His arms are here. It knocks his arm. It knocks his knee, I think, and it goes in. And you're thinking, right, 2-0, happy days. 20 minutes to go, 2-0. They're not going to get back into this now. Can we go and get a third, a fourth, a fifth, and hopefully be able to look at the second half and think, right, this was a much more of improvement than what the first half was. And then all of a sudden, VAR checking potential handball. And within 30 seconds, 40 seconds, something like that, handball given, no goal. And you watch it back, and you watched it back in the stadium when they showed the replay of the goal, and you watch it back afterwards, and you think, do you know what? That's relatively fair enough. It bounces off his head, it hits his arm, although his arm isn't in an unnatural position, or it's not intentional, it hits his arm. They made the decision quickly, and they moved on with it. I don't want to get into the referee arguments again, because if you watch the review to the Manchester City game, I think we spent the first half an hour not even talking about the game. I think we spent the first half an hour talking about the disastrous, corrupt, biased officials that work within the Premier League. So I'm not going to go into that argument again or go into that discussion again, because, as I said, I don't want to cover old ground, and you all know my feelings on referees and what the next steps need to be. As I said, for me, it's either replace them all, and by them all I mean sack every single referee that works in the Premier League, every single one of them, because they're all shite, they're all as bad as each other, or one of two things: mic them up during games so that television companies and anybody that's showing the games or match of the day and in the night have got access to what the referees are saying to the VAR, and what the VARs are saying to the referees, or make them do compulsory post-game interviews like managers and players have to do to explain some of their decisions. It's either that or sack a lot of them and bring in a new team, because these bunch of absolute idiots are disgracefully bad at their jobs, and they're paid ridiculous amounts of money to be disgracefully bad at their jobs, which is sickening. It really, really is sickening. This referee in question, I don't know what his name was, I don't know who he was, but he made a decision. He dealt with the situation quickly. He made the decision and he moved on with it, and it was the right decision. As I said, I'm not going to sit here and say it's the wrong decision, because it come off his arm, and in the rules of football they say that that's a handball and that goal doesn't count. Fine, but in the rules of football it says that if you literally Google the definition of a handball, Rodri's handball is the definition of a handball. And yet Chris Kavanagh, because he's corrupt, because he's biased, because he's from Manchester, didn't give it. And as I said, something needs to be done about that. And how ironic as well, in front of the Gladys seat, Richarlison gets a handball given against him when Rodri caught the ball and signed it last week, and nothing was given. But yeah, the goal's disallowed. And as I said, in a Premier League game in that situation, we might have been looking at it going, oh, pressure's on a little bit here. The opposition team might react to that. They might get a little bit of a boost in momentum and confidence. But because of the levels of the two sides and because of the fact that Boreham Wood were, ultimately, I think just at that stage where they were thinking just hold on and don't get embarrassed. It wasn't really like that. We just picked ourselves up and went again. As I said, a couple of minutes later, ball comes in, Rondon gets the header on it, keeper makes a save, but the ball's gone over the line and it's 2-0, and all of a sudden it's it's dead and buried, the game by that point. It was a win for Everton. As I said, a comfortable win, not a comfortable win to the point where we're sitting here going 6-0. What a great win, amazing performance. Just a comfortable win to the point where we're saying we were never under any real pressure, but it wasn't particularly exciting. It was a cold, wet, sort of miserable night at Goodison Park. Really cold and really wet. I think that was a sort of a description of the performance. We done enough. It was comfortable, but it wasn't particularly great. It wasn't particularly entertaining, and I suppose it wasn't a brilliant watch. But it doesn't matter. Rondon gets the second goal. As I said, we had a couple of half chances towards the end of the game. Anthony Gordon had a couple. We bring on young Reece Welsh, young guys that plays for their debuts. I think they've done relatively well. Only touched the ball a couple of times, the pair of them, but when they did, they dealt with it well. They moved it round well. Lewis Dobbin come on and dealt with it well when he had to as well. And then obviously the final whistle blew, and we were through into the next round. And as I said, listen, I don't want to get too ahead of myself with this. I don't want to get too annoyed with the way in which we performed in that first half, because a lot of people would say, well, Cam, there was no need for us to go out and give absolutely everything, because that could have ultimately have maybe that would have caused problems with Monday's game. Players might have got injured, they've given too much, or players might have this, that and the other. I don't know, maybe we didn't need to do as much as I'm sort of expecting. But the reality is, I wanted to see more in that first half, and I didn't. In the second half, as I said, I think Boreham Wood started to tire a little bit. I think Boreham Wood started to drop their levels, and ultimately Everton just took advantage of that and ended up getting the win, which was ultimately all that matters. All that matters was that we got there, we turned up and we won. Yes, it'd have been great to have seen us win 6-7-0 and absolutely obliterate Boreham Wood, but to be honest, I'd have taken 1-0 off somebody's arse in the last 20 seconds, having been battered for the rest of the game. As long as you win the game, that's all that matters. And, as I said, we progress into the next round. We've got Crystal Palace, which will be a difficult game. A really, really difficult game at Selhurst Park, and without doubt a game that we will have to improve going into off the back of this performance. But first, we've got Spurs on Monday night. As I said, we will be live tomorrow afternoonish, probably about 1 o'clock, 1:30, with the game preview to that game. So don't forget to join us. We'll be doing our predicted starting 11. We'll be talking about Frank Lampard's pre-game press conference, which is yesterday, and we'll be talking about the game. I'll actually be down at Spurs on Monday night. Myself and Ned are travelling all the way up to London to watch the game, so I might try and get a couple of pictures or a couple of videos of the atmosphere and stuff like that, and hopefully get the videos out as soon as possible as well after that one. But should be interesting. As I said, we will undoubtedly have to improve our performance if we're going to get anything out of Spurs, but I think we will. As I said in the instant match reaction, we weren't particularly great on Saturday, and we played one of the, not the worst teams in the country in a sense, but, certainly one of the, the worst team we'll play this season in terms of quality, I think it's fair to say. However, last Saturday we played the best team in the country by some stretch, and a team that are, as I said, on a different Milky Way to Boreham Wood, and we put in a really, really good performance and deserved more out of that game. So Spurs will be tough. It will be tough. They've got a couple of really, really good talented players there, and they've got a really, really good manager, but we've got to get something out of the game. We simply have to get something out of the game, given that Newcastle have just won again today. I know a couple of the other results were in our favour, and that's great. And I know we've got games in hand, and I understand that, and I understand people saying, oh yeah, but we've got 3 games in hand on this team and 4 games in hand on that team. I understand all of that, but the reality is I'd rather have the points on the board than the games in hand, to be perfectly honest with you. And Monday night is a very, very, very good opportunity for us to go and get some points on the board, and a very good opportunity for us to go and get, if we can get a draw there, I'll take that. If we could get 3 points there, that'd be absolutely amazing as well. Last time we played at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, we won, didn't we, on the opening game of last season. So yeah, it'll be tough. But a win is needed, and at least a point is needed. And as I said, it was a good win on Thursday night. It was comfortable, it was dealt with, it was professional to a sense. And we've now got Crystal Palace in the quarters, which will be a really, really big game. Hopefully by that point we'll be in a much more secure, safe position in terms of the Premier League, and then who knows, you put a really good performance in against Palace, which is a beatable team. It's not the hardest game in the world. It's a tough game, and it's not the hardest game in the world. Then all of a sudden you could have a place at Wembley, and we could be looking at a sort of remake of 1995, dare I say it. But listen, that's a long way down the line, and that's a conversation that we definitely shouldn't be having at this point. Glenn has become a member of the channel. Thank you very much, Glenn. Really, really do appreciate that. My mate Gordon said, can't wait for my next trip to Goodison. Hopefully it's a win this time. Let's hope so. Wormy says, I thought he would get 3. Then we could say Ron Donkey only scores hat-tricks. Well, he could have had 3, couldn't he, to be fair? He probably could have had about 5, but he certainly could have had 3. The header that he missed was awful. Let's get a pint in the game, Cam, says Glenn. Yeah, mate, let me know where you're sat, where about you are. I'll be somewhere within the away end with Matty. I don't know where we'll be before the game. I suppose it just depends on what time the coach turns up. Newcastle 2-1 over Brighton today. Brentford 3-1 over Norwich. Yeah, I think we're a point above the relegation zone at the moment, which is a point above Burnley. Which isn't ideal, is it? Let's be honest. Yes, we've got 2 games in hand on Burnley, 3 on Norwich. We've got 3 games in hand on Leeds, 4 games in hand on Brentford, 2 games in hand on Newcastle, 3 games in hand on Brighton. So we've got a number of games in hand on a lot of these teams that are above us. But as I said, I much would rather the points on the board than the games in hand, to be honest with you, because the way we've played in the league recently, the games in hand don't guarantee anything, do they? Richie was walking the 45, resting for Monday. That's the impact he has. I know there's non-league, but they still didn't concede till Goodison. That's fair enough. Nice one, Cam. Have fun. Stay safe, says Semi. Thank you very much, mate. Really, really do appreciate it. How's it going, Cam? Says Gort's bummed that due to the predicted weather. I'm not going to be at the home opener tonight for Minnesota. Nightmare, mate. Nightmares. The weather bad over there as well. The weather's been difficult over here recently, I think it's fair to say. It was actually not too bad of a day today. It was freezing, but it was drying, which is good. It was the sort of weather where you drive with your car window open today, which is nice and relaxing. Super Frankie is building something special, says Pryneat is right. Sophie says, hi Cam, an okay win. Hopefully the goals will give Rondon a boost. Let's hope so. Hernandez says, Keeper made some incredible saves throughout the match. He did. Hello Cam, top man, says Semi. Hello. Aldi Doody Cam, says Peter. What's happening? Alright Cam, wasn't the best performance, but got the job done, says Andy. You're spot on. Richarlison's disallowed goals just shows the Premier League referees are so biased, says Sophie. Yeah. Gold says it didn't get a chance to watch the game live, but the highlights look like we played better in the second half for sure. We did. We were much better in the second half. And as I said, we were comfortable in the first half. We just struggled to break down their defence, which was a little bit of a worry. But I understand a lot of people saying they hadn't conceded before this round and this, that and the other, and I get that, but let's be honest, they hadn't really played anybody decent before this round. I know Bournemouth are doing well in the Championship at the moment, but you'd fancy Everton to beat Bournemouth every day of the week, wouldn't you? So, but anyway, look, doesn't matter. We won the game. We're in the hat. Well, we're not in the hat because it's already been done. We're into the next round. We've got Crystal Palace away, which will be a difficult game, but hopefully a game we can go and win. But we've got some really, really important Premier League games before then that we have to look at as a priority, and it starts with Monday night against Spurs. We are going to leave it there. Then if you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Massive thank you to everybody for getting involved in the live comments. Really, really do appreciate it. If you're watching a YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below. As I said, we will be back tomorrow, midday, Sunday live stream with the game preview to the game against Spurs, so don't forget to join us for that one. We'll be giving our predicted start 11, talking about Frank Lampard's press conference and much more. And then, as I said, we'll be at Spurs on Monday night, and hopefully we'll be coming away with a smile on our faces. But anyway, massive thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this one, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Semi says, well in joining the channel, Glenn. Cheers. Thank you very much, Glenn. Really appreciate it. If you've enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Big thanks for watching. Up the toffees, into the next round. Job done. Not amazing, but job done. Get in is right. Up the toffees. See you later.